What's up, YouTube? My name is Chucky, and I'm your alcoholic brother. So today, I'm going to show you a payroll system specifically for my country, which is the Philippines. So what you're looking at here right now is a finished product. So we have here your payslip, and on this little area here is your search box. Say, for example, I have an employee by the name of Bob, and I would like to see his pay period between the 6th to the 11th of July. So if you notice, the payslip was automatically updated, and on this results section here, it's showing you all the number of days when Bob came into work. So anyway, let me preface that this is not going to be an in-depth tutorial on how to build this product. So this is more of a guide on how to use this. Now, if you're someone who's looking to create his own system, or if you're someone from a different country and you would like to build something similar, then you can actually use this as your reference or an example. Anyway, let's go ahead and start. Okay, so a little bit of introduction here. If you're going to use this system, then unfortunately we need to have at least basic Excel or Google Sheets knowledge. Later you'll understand why. Is doing payroll easy? The answer is no. We all know it's time consuming. So is there a shortcut then? Yes, there is always a shortcut, and it basically just means you have to pay someone else to do the job, right? Okay, so there are tons of systems out there, and at some point you'll probably compare this system to those. But let me tell you that they all share the same common pattern, which is tracking all time in and time out. What makes a good system? Well, for me, anything as long as it provides you the information that you need, then I'd call that a good system. Alright, so to summarize what I've created, I basically just have to create a list of names, my employees, right? And then my reference tables. The next step is to track all their time in and time out. And lastly, track all other things. Okay, so enough introduction. Let's go and take a look at the system. All right, so the first step is to create a list of employee names, right? So if you notice, I have here a tab called Employee Details. So on this page, there are actually only two information that's required, which is the name of the person and their daily rate, right? The rest of the information here, like the position, their salary method information, their social security number, tax information, that's really up to you if you want to keep them. But on this page, all that is needed is the name and the daily rate, and we're good to go. So assuming I am doing a renovation for my business, right? So I have here mason, and all-around workers. So let's just assume that I only have 4 employees because I don't want to pay a contractor. I planned everything, and I'll just hire some guys to actually do the job, and I would like to have it done on a daily basis. All right, so moving along. The next step is to set up your reference tables. So I have here a helper tab, and it actually contains 4 very important tables. So the first one is going to be the schedule shells. So let's just assume that for a schedule that starts 12 midnight and ends with 9 o'clock in the morning, I'll call that schedule shell A. B up until X. So if you notice the sequence here, Later, I'll only be using shell I, which starts 8 o'clock and ends 5 o'clock in the evening. I'm sorry, afternoon. And then the second schedule is going to be 12 in the afternoon to 9 o'clock in the evening. So this is what I mentioned about this system being specific to the Philippines because we have a 9 work hour window and um, 1 hour is allocated for lunch, basically. Okay, so the next table is going to be your payroll setup. So on here, I've decided to pay my employees every week. So say for example, from June 29th up until June 3 coverage, I just put the start date and the end date. So the trick here is as long as the dates are not repeated, then that's fine. And if you want to switch from weekly to every other week, that is fine as well. So if you notice, every week here up until here, and then beginning August 3rd, I am moving to a every other week pay schedule. So from the 3rd to the 16th, so my end date is 16th. Again, as long as it's not repeated, that is completely fine. Same thing with here, right? All right, so the next table here is going to be the list of your holidays. So here in the Philippines, we all know that there are two types of holiday, which is either a regular holiday, which is double pay, or a special holiday, which is 30%, right? Um, so as long as you put in the date on here, a little bit of description on what the holiday is, and the type of holiday, either special or a regular holiday. These are all important information. And lastly, this table here is for overtimes, right? So assuming that I'll be requiring my employees to render overtime, here in the Philippines, we know that if it's a regular day and they go on overtime, they get like 25% on top of their hourly rate. Um, and assuming it's their day off, you call them and you want them to come into work, then they will be paid 30% on top of their hourly rate, right? And assuming that on the rest day overtime you want them to further extend, right? Then those succeeding hours is going to be 69% more, right? And then this is the holiday, which is double pay, 100% on top of their hourly rate. And if it's a holiday and you require them to render overtime, it's 1.6 multiplier. You get the gist of it, right? So again, this table is only for overtime related information. Um, if, for example, you want to change this, which I do not recommend because this is the standard currently, then you can actually do so if you want to. But then again, if you wanna change this, that's up to you, right? So if you are going to lower the value here, you're basically are not paying them correctly. But if you are generous and if you want to increase the multipliers here, that is even better, right? So now that we have set up our reference table, the next step is going to track the daily logs of our employees. Now let me make a quick side note here real quick, because when we are going to track their hours, we're going to be using a military format, which is 24-hour system. So when we say 1 o'clock p.m., it means 1300 hour. Say for example 8 p.m., that's going to be 20th hundred hour. So if we are going to enter this in the system, it's going to look something like this. Now, I know what you're thinking. It looks tedious, right? And this is actually why we had to set up our reference table earlier. So let's just assume Bob, right? On the 1st of August, right? So let's just assume that he will be coming in to work schedule shall I. Let me go ahead and expand this real quick. So if I place the letter I in here, it's actually going to automatically populate this, right? Now, let's assume that he's going to be late for this particular day. Now, on this section here, let's just say he was late for an hour. I'll just go and change that to 9, and then I'll make remarks here that he was late, right? And if it's his RDOT, I can just play this here, right? He was late because, again, you required him to come to work during his day off, right? So something like that, right? Anyway, let me go ahead erase what we have here, and let's just assume that this is all the logs of my employees for up until the 31st of July, right? So if you notice, if they're absent, I'm just gonna place their logs here as blank. If it's RDOT, again, what's really important on this particular page is everything from A, B, C, G, and H, and of course even this rest AOT. So once you have this, then everything is going to be automatically calculated, which is going to bring us to the next step. Before we proceed, we all know that when we are entering information manually, it's subject to error, right? And that is completely fine. So the question here is, how can you make sure that you've actually entered the overtime information correctly here, right? So I actually have this section here, and I don't recommend anyone touching this because this is where all the formula is located. But in the event that you would like to verify whether or not you have entered the correct information, then you'll have to look on column K, right? So 8 means our employee has completed the 9-hour shift, 1 hour is allocated for lunch, right? And then for overtime, we have to look under column R, and if you notice, there's 2 hours overtime here, right? So you can collapse and expand this if you want, as long as you don't touch anything on this section. So say, for example, you made a mistake here, right? So instead of placing it number 2nd of July, you inadvertently placed on the 3rd of July, right? So if you notice, um, the time here is still correct, but if you look at the OT hours, it's now 26 hours, which is kind of impossible. So yeah, you probably have to expand this from time to time just to verify that all information is correct. But if you notice something that like that, then you know that you made a mistake and you just have to correct that. Alright, so now that we have tracked all their logs, the next section is going to be the salaries, right? And yes, unfortunately, we still have to track their salaries. I guess the only good news here is that for earnings, that's automatically calculated. So say, for example, Bob again. Let me put that there and expand this real quick. And let's just say the next payday is going to be June 13th to the 18th, and I'm going to pay him by the 17th, right? So as soon as I enter all his information here, that's automatically calculated. I guess the only thing that you needed to modify here is when it comes to bonuses, right? I don't know why you want to do that, but if you do, you can just enter it here, right? That's the only time you are going to make changes on this particular section. Otherwise, leave it as it is. It's automatically calculated. And the next part here is going to be their deductions, right? This organization's Social Security, Pag-ibig, PhilHealth, their tax. I know that you're only going to pay all these institutions once a month, right? And the way you're doing it is that instead of deducting all these numbers here on one single salary, you decided to deduct it per cutoff. That way the deduction is not going to feel that heavy, right? Now, you unfortunately again have to place all this information here. Say, for example, 150 there. Nope, made a mistake. 150 for fill out pag-ibig, and then for tax, this I don't know, but I can tell you that if you place enter, if you place if you place something in here, it's automatically going to reflect the 5% of that. And then lastly, this others. Okay, so if you're wondering what this is something to do with payment advance, right? In the Philippines, they call it cash advance, right? So they're making an advancement of their salaries. Unfortunately, this tab that we're looking at here is not linked on here. You would have to enter all this information manually. All right, so say for example, you're going to track it here, Bob 2000 on the first, um, and then Junella on the first as well for 1000, right? Anyway, as the list keeps increasing, it's gonna get confusing, right? So that's why I place here a summary. That way you would immediately see who owes what, right? And then you can actually expand this section here. Say for example, Bob. Here we go. So if you search Bob here, you'll notice that we have a summary which is on the first 2000 he paid on the third and the 10th, and then on the 13th he made another cash advance of 1000. That's why he still owes us 2000, right? Again, I cannot stress this enough. You'll have to manually track all of this in here, right? So 500 there, and then the logs. So Bob. So let's just assume he paid on the 17th. So let's just say 500 this time, right? So if you notice, there you go. It's automatically being updated here as well, right? Alright, so as we approach the final part of the video, in any event that your employees would require a payslip, you can actually go to our dashboard here. You just have to enter the name, say for example Bob, and then you can just print this out. Everything is automatically updated, and in the event that they have disputes or questions, at least on this section, you would immediately see the number of days when they have to come into work. All right, so I do have sets of questions here. All right, so number one, is this system designed to calculate night differential? Well, the answer is no, unfortunately. I mean, I can technically do that. However, for these kinds of feature, I think it's best that you actually consult with our professionals out of respect to our accounting profession. It's best that you actually coordinate with them if you want expanded features like that. Next question is, what if the employee is not paid by the hour? So, okay, if you remember when we set up the employee details, we are only requiring the name and the daily rate, right? If we are to actually expand this, it's actually being converted to hourly rate. So to answer the question, this system is only designed to calculate by the hour. Anything else? No, it's not designed for anything else. What if along the way they're going to ask for an increase in salary, right? That's going to be an expanded feature again, but the workaround I can do here is that for say for August, right? I'm going to have another name here, Bob1, which is the same person, and I'll just enter here their new salary, and then comes August. This is going to be the information that will be used for future calculations, right? What if they are absent during their pay? Does their salary carries over? Well, that's really up to you. Now, if you remember when it comes to payday, right? I mentioned earlier that it's a good practice to place something on the remark section. That way, say for example in here, Bob was not paid on the 10th, right? You could just place here paid previous cutoff as well. You can do that, right? But technically, yes, it's up to you how you want to decide to do that. Um, the next question here is, what if I'm late, but I will render off the overtime to compensate? Well, remember this section here that any overtime is calculated differently. So to answer the question, if the purpose is to extend by an hour to compensate for the lost hours, what I would actually require you to do is to just enter their logs as it is. If they start at 12 and they were late by an hour, instead of you entering 1 o'clock, just enter 12 to 9 as on this particular area. Um, all right. What about holidays? If it if their shift crosses over the following day. Again, anything that crosses over to the following day and night differential, that's not part of the system. And then we have here over breaks, right? Well, on our daily logs, it's really up to you. Say, for example, they were over break by an hour. What you can just do here is that instead of you, the actual out here is going to be 9, you're going to reduce that by 1 hour. And then on the remarks section, let me show you an example here. So that's 20, so they were late by an hour. And just place a remarks here that over break, right? The, and that's the reason why you're actually decreasing their salary. Anyway, I think that's it for the video. If you have any other questions, if you find any errors, please please go ahead comment that. I will read every comment and I'll try to respond to any inquiries you may have. All right, so I think that's it for the video. Again, my name is Chucky. I'm your alcoholic brother. In the name of beer, of wine, and a shot full of gin, cheers.